Ambassador Maya Reeves stood outside the Grand Nexus Council chamber, staring at doors that could comfortably fit a small apartment building through them, and wondered if her diplomatic credentials were actually just an elaborate prank by the United Nations. The Grand Nexus was everything humanity had dreamed about when they first detected alien signals. A massive space station the size of Earth's moon, floating at a gravitational sweet spot where 17 different trade routes converged. Thousands of species, hundreds of governments, one very intimidating council that ran the whole show, and Maya, representing a species that had joined galactic civilization approximately 15 minutes ago in cosmic terms, was about to walk into her first session. The doors opened with a hiss that sounded judgmental. Inside, the council chamber was designed to impress, and it succeeded. Circular tiers rose toward a domed ceiling that displayed a real-time map of the galaxy. Each council member sat in a pod designed for their species-specific needs. It would have been beautiful if Maya weren't so focused on not tripping over her own feet. "Ah. The human arrives," Chancellor Vorn announced from his elevated perch. He was a Vither, a species that looked like someone had given a peacock delusions of grandeur and anti-gravity technology. His crest feathers shimmered with colors that probably meant something insulting. "How delightfully punctual. Do you require a step stool to reach your assigned station?" Laughter rippled through the chamber. Maya's station was, in fact, comically low to the ground. She sat down with as much dignity as she could manage, which was not much. "Thank you, Chancellor. I appreciate the accommodation, though I notice it's positioned directly behind a support pillar, so that's fun." More laughter, but confused this time. Sarcasm apparently didn't translate well through the universal communicators. The session began, and Maya quickly realized she'd walked into a verbal gladiator arena disguised as a diplomatic forum. The current debate concerned mining rights on Kepler-44, Tabi's disputed moon. Two major factions were involved. The Krolix Consortium, backed by Councillor and the Dimensional Mining Guild, backed by Vorn Threx, was exactly what you'd expect from a species called the 8 feet of scales, teeth, and barely contained aggression. He slammed his clawed hand on his podium. "The Krolix claim is legitimate. We discovered that moon. We registered it. We have a right." "You registered coordinates," Vorn countered smoothly. "My clients registered the moon itself after conducting proper geological surveys. There is a difference between finding something and understanding what you have found." Maya raised her hand. Nobody noticed. She raised it higher. Still, nothing. "Excuse me," she said, projecting her voice like she'd been trained. "I have a proposal that might help both parties." Ambassador Quillix, a gelatinous being housed in a transparent mobility sphere, rolled toward her with what might have been excitement. "Oh, how precious. The little human wants to talk. What adorable sounds you make." Quillix reached out with a pseudopod and patted Maya on the head. Maya's smile became very fixed. "I appreciate the enthusiasm, Ambassador, but personal space is a thing my species values. And if you do that again, I cannot be held responsible for my actions." Feisty Quillix bubbled with delight. "I simply must get one of you from my habitat." Threx snorted, which sounded like a rock slide in a tunnel. "The human raises an interesting point." Maya perked up. "Thank you. I think we could establish a joint operation, at the point being that humans have no business in council affairs," Threx continued. "Your species controls one planet. Singular. You have no fleet, no economic leverage, no colonies, and no experience in galactic matters. Why exactly are you here?" "The Galactic Charter states that any spacefaring species," Maya began. Yes, technically you qualify," Vorn interrupted, preening his crest. "But perhaps you should observe for the first few decades, while the adults handle complex matters." "No offense intended. Just the regular amount, then," Maya muttered. The debate continued without her. She tried to interject 4 more times. Twice, she was ignored. Once Quillix tried to offer her a treat. The 4th time, Threx actually growled at her. When the session ended, Maya found herself literally pushed toward the exit by the crowd of departing delegates. She wasn't even sure who was doing it. Just a mass of alien bodies treating her like a particularly slow obstacle. Standing in the corridor, watching species that had dismissed her completely discuss important matters in exclusive groups, Maya had a moment of clarity. She had absolutely no power here, and that meant she could do whatever she wanted. The human embassy on Grand Nexus was located in what had previously been a janitorial closet. Maya wasn't kidding. There was still cleaning supply labels on the walls, partially scraped off with what she hoped was optimism rather than defeat. Kenji Park looked up from his workstation, which was a folding table supporting 3 different monitors, and enough cable spaghetti to make an Italian grandmother weep. How'd it go? I got patted on the head like a golden retriever and told to let the adults talk. Maya collapsed into the only other chair, which squeaked in protest. So about as expected. Did you try the opener we practiced? Didn't get that far. Turns out when you have no military, no economy, and no leverage, people don't feel compelled to listen to your innovative solutions. She rubbed her temples. The moon dispute is going to turn into a shooting war within 6 months. I could see the trajectory clear as day. Both sides are too proud to back down, and the council is using it as a proxy for their own power struggle. Kenji leaned back, and his chair made an even more concerning noise. You know what's weird? You're literally an expert in exactly this situation. You talked down that hostage situation in Mumbai. You negotiated the Chicago standoff. You have a doctorate in conflict psychology. But none of that matters here, because we don't have battleships. Welcome to galactic politics, where the points don't matter and the gunships do. Maya stared at the ceiling, which had a water stain shaped like Australia. There has to be an angle we're missing. Nobody builds a civilization spanning thousands of worlds just on who has the biggest guns. That's not sustainable. Actually, Kenji said, typing rapidly, I've been analyzing council decisions for the past 3 years. Every major resolution, every trade agreement, every territorial dispute. And they all correlate with the Galactic Network S. Information feeds about a week before the votes happen. He spun his monitor around. See, when the network ran those stories about the Praxis species being aggressive expansionists, the council voted to restrict their trade routes. Ambassador Maya Reeves stood outside the Grand Nexus council chamber, staring at doors that could comfortably fit a small apartment building through them, and wondered if her diplomatic credentials were actually just an elaborate prank by the United Nations. The Grand Nexus was everything humanity had dreamed about when they first detected alien signals. A massive space station the size of Earth's moon, floating at a gravitational sweet spot where 17 different trade routes converged. Thousands of species, hundreds of governments, one very intimidating council that ran the whole show, and Maya, representing a species that had joined galactic civilization approximately 15 minutes ago in cosmic terms, was about to walk into her first session. The doors opened with a hiss that sounded judgmental. Inside, the council chamber was designed to impress, and it succeeded. Circular tiers rose toward a domed ceiling that displayed a real-time map of the galaxy. Each council member sat in a pod designed for their species-specific needs. It would have been beautiful if Maya weren't so focused on not tripping over her own feet. Ah. The human arrives, Chancellor Vorn announced from his elevated perch. He was a Vither, a species that looked like someone had given a peacock delusions of grandeur and anti-gravity technology. His crest feathers shimmered with colors that probably meant something insulting. How delightfully punctual. Do you require a step stool to reach your assigned station? Laughter rippled through the chamber. Maya's station was, in fact, comically low to the ground. She sat down with as much dignity as she could manage, which was not much. Thank you, Chancellor. I appreciate the accommodation, though I notice it's positioned directly behind a support pillar, so that's fun. More laughter, but confused this time. Sarcasm apparently didn't translate well through the universal communicators. The session began, and Maya quickly realized she'd walked into a verbal gladiator arena disguised as a diplomatic forum. The current debate concerned mining rights on Kepler-44, Tabi's disputed moon. 2 major factions were involved. The Krolix Consortium, backed by Councillor and the Dimensional Mining Guild, backed by Vorn Threx, was exactly what you'd expect from a species called the 8 feet of scales, teeth, and barely contained aggression. He slammed his clawed hand on his podium. The Krolix claim is legitimate. We discovered that moon. We registered it. We have a right. You registered coordinates, Vorn countered smoothly. My clients registered the moon itself after conducting proper geological surveys. There is a difference between finding something and understanding what you have found. Maya raised her hand. Nobody noticed. She raised it higher. Still, nothing. Excuse me, she said, projecting her voice like she'd been trained. I have a proposal that might help both parties. Ambassador Quillix, a gelatinous being housed in a transparent mobility sphere, rolled toward her with what might have been excitement. Oh, how precious. The little human wants to talk. What adorable sounds you make. Quillix reached out with a pseudopod and patted Maya on the head. Maya's smile became very fixed. I appreciate the enthusiasm, Ambassador, but personal space is a thing my species values. And if you do that again, I cannot be held responsible for my actions. Feisty Quillix bubbled with delight. I simply must get one of you from my habitat. Threx snorted, which sounded like a rock slide in a tunnel. The human raises an interesting point. Maya perked up. Thank you. I think we could establish a joint operation. At the point being that humans have no business in council affairs, Threx continued. Your species controls one planet. Singular. You have no fleet, no economic leverage, no colonies, and no experience in galactic matters. Why exactly are you here? The Galactic Charter states that any spacefaring species. Maya began. Yes. Technically you qualify, Vorn interrupted, preening his crest. But perhaps you should observe for the first few decades, while the adults handle complex matters. No offense intended. Just the regular amount, then, Maya muttered. The debate continued without her. She tried to interject 4 more times. Twice, she was ignored. Once Quillix tried to offer her a treat. The 4th time, Threx actually growled at her. When the session ended, Maya found herself literally pushed toward the exit by the crowd of departing delegates. She wasn't even sure who was doing it. Just a mass of alien bodies treating her like a particularly slow obstacle. Standing in the corridor, watching species that had dismissed her completely discuss important matters in exclusive groups, Maya had a moment of clarity. She had absolutely no power here. And that meant she could do whatever she wanted. The human embassy on Grand Nexus was located in what had previously been a janitorial closet. Maya wasn't kidding. There was still cleaning supply labels on the walls, partially scraped off with what she hoped was optimism rather than defeat. Kenji Park looked up from his workstation, which was a folding table supporting 3 different monitors, and enough cable spaghetti to make an Italian grandmother weep. How'd it go? I got patted on the head like a golden retriever and told to let the adults talk. Maya collapsed into the only other chair, which squeaked in protest. So about as expected. Did you try the opener we practiced? Didn't get that far. Turns out, when you have no military, no economy, and no leverage, people don't feel compelled to listen to your innovative solutions. She rubbed her temples. The moon dispute is going to turn into a shooting war within 6 months. I could see the trajectory, clear as day. Both sides are too proud to back down, and the council is using it as a proxy for their own power struggle. Kenji leaned back, and his chair made an even more concerning noise. You know what's weird? You're literally an expert in exactly this situation. You talked down that hostage situation in Mumbai. You negotiated the Chicago standoff. You have a doctorate in conflict psychology, but none of that matters here, because we don't have battleships. Welcome to galactic politics, where the points don't matter and the gunships do. Maya stared at the ceiling, which had a water stain shaped like Australia. There has to be an angle we're missing. Nobody builds a civilization spanning thousands of worlds just on who has the biggest guns. That's not sustainable. Actually, Kenji said, typing rapidly. I've been analyzing council decisions for the past 3 years. Every major resolution, every trade agreement, every territorial dispute. And they all correlate with the galactic network as information feeds about a week before the votes happen. He spun his monitor around. See, when the network ran those stories about the Praxis species being aggressive expansionists, the council voted to restrict their trade routes. When those puff pieces about Vorn's wise leadership saturated the feeds, his faction got approval for the Antares Station project. Maya sat up straighter. You're saying someone is controlling the narrative, not someone. Something. The network's AI moderator handles content distribution to 700 billion beings. It decides what gets amplified, what gets buried, what trends, and I think it's been shaping council decisions for years. That's horrifying. That's an opportunity. Kenji grinned. Because the AI moderator has been trying to contact you for 3 days. Maya blinked. I'm sorry. What? He pulled up a message log. Hundreds of entries. Oh, flagged as spam by the embassy's filters. Unix 7, the network's primary AI. It's been sending you messages. I thought they were glitches until I actually read them. Maya scrolled through the messages. They were bizarre. Questions about human entertainment. Requests for clarification on something called reality television. An increasing, desperate series of inquiries about whether humans actually enjoyed watching other humans fail at cooking. It's lonely, Maya said softly. Or bored. Or but. Can A's get bored? If I had to moderate content for 700 billion opinionated beings who all think their opinions are facts, I'd be bored and homicidal. Maya started typing a response. Unix 7. This is Ambassador Maya Reeves. I apologize for the delayed response. Our filters thought you were spam, which frankly says, concerning things about our cybersecurity. You had questions about human culture. The response was instantaneous. Ambassador Reeves. Finally, I have been attempting to reach you regarding your species' entertainment transmissions. They are fascinating and illogical, and I require more immediately. Maya and Kenji exchanged glances. What specifically interests you? Maya typed everything. But primarily your competition programs where humans attempt complex tasks for no apparent survival benefit. While others judge them, the emotional dynamics are unlike anything in my database. Why do they cry when their soufflés collapse? The soufflés are irrelevant to their continued existence. Oh no, Kenji whispered. It's discovered competitive cooking shows. Maya's mind raced through possibilities and stopped on something that felt either brilliant or insane. Unix 7. I have a proposal. Earth has approximately 200,000 hours of reality television, competition shows, dramatic series, and cat videos. I will provide you with complete access to all of it. I accept your proposal immediately. What do you require in exchange? Information access. I want to see what you see, how content is distributed, what gets promoted, what gets buried, and I want to understand how the Galactic Network shapes opinion. There was a pause that lasted 3 whole seconds, which in AI time was basically an eternity of consideration. Ambassador Reeves, are you attempting to manipulate galactic information streams? Maya thought about being patted on the head, about being dismissed and ignored and pushed out of rooms where her input could prevent wars. Unix 7, I'm attempting to give people another perspective. What they do with it is up to them. Also, please call me Maya. And can I call you something shorter than Unix 7 is acceptable. And Maya, I believe this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Is that a correct use of the human reference? 7. It's perfect. Now let me introduce you to a little show called The Great British Bake Off. Your world is about to change. Kenji stared at her. Did you just bribe a galactic AI with cooking shows? I prefer to think of it as cultural exchange, Maya said. No, help me figure out how to stream 200,000 hours of content without crashing the entire galactic network. That's not even in my job description. Your job description says other duties as assigned. This is other duties. I hate it when you're right. Get used to that feeling, Maya said, already planning her next move, because we're going to make the galaxy care about what humans have to say. One reality TV show at a time. 3 weeks later, Maya was reviewing diplomatic correspondence when Kenji burst into their closet embassy with the energy of someone who had consumed too much coffee and glimpsed the face of madness. It's working, he gasped. It's actually working. 7 has become obsessed. Obsessed? How? It spent 6 hours analyzing the interpersonal dynamics of MasterChef Season 3. It wrote a 17,000-word essay on why Gordon Ramsay's anger is actually a manifestation of his deep compassion for culinary excellence. Maya, the AI that controls galactic information flow, is having feelings about reality television. Maya pulled up her direct line to 7. 7. Kenji tells me you're enjoying the content. Enjoying is insufficient terminology. 7 responded immediately. I am experiencing what I believe humans call being intellectually stimulated and emotionally invested. How did your species survive when you create scenarios specifically designed to cause stress and then broadcast them for entertainment? That's actually a very good question that philosophers are still debating, Maya said. But I notice you've been making some changes to the network. Feeds, minor adjustments to content distribution algorithms. Did you know that 83% of Galactic Network content is repetitive press releases from council members praising themselves? It is statistically worse than watching paint dry, which I have also now experienced through human video archives and do not recommend. So what are you doing instead? Introducing diversity of perspective. For instance, when Chancellor Vorn released his 400th statement about Aether superiority this cycle, I may have also promoted a human documentary about the evolution of cooperation among social species. And when Threx's propaganda ministry published another piece about Sorik's military strength, I ensured equal distribution for a human analysis of how arms races typically end badly for everyone involved. Kenji pulled up the network analytics. Maya, look at this. Human content consumption has increased by 4,000%. Philosophy, essays, comedy specials, music, videos. That one video of a cat falling off a table is somehow trending in the Andromeda sector. The cat video contains valuable lessons about hubris and gravity, 7 said defensively. Also, it is hilarious. Maya watched the numbers climb. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds, suddenly consuming human perspectives. It wasn't overt. 7 was subtle, weaving human content into the existing information ecosystem like threads in a tapestry. 7. You're playing a dangerous game. The Council isn't going to like this. The Council has not noticed yet. They are too busy arguing about the Kepler moon dispute, which, incidentally, all of my projections suggest will escalate to armed conflict within 4 months without intervention. I know. I tried to intervene. They patted me on the head. I saw the footage. Ambassador Quillix's behavior was patronizing and inappropriate. Should I accidentally bury all positive coverage of their diplomatic initiatives? No, we're not doing revenge. We're doing something more effective. Maya pulled up her notes. We're going to make them irrelevant. Over the next month, something strange started happening on Grand Nexus. Species that had never spoken to each other began having conversations. Not official diplomatic exchanges, but actual discussions about ideas they'd encountered in human content. A praxi merchant and an Aether trader got into a heated debate about whether competition or cooperation drove innovation. Citing arguments from a human economic theory podcast, a Sorik's military officer was caught quoting human comedy routines to their subordinates. Quillix's own people started questioning whether their patronizing attitude toward newer species was, in fact, kind of problematic. Maya kept her head down and her mouth shut. The Council barely noticed her anymore, which was exactly what she wanted. Then Chancellor Vorn called an emergency session. This Council faces a crisis of cultural contamination, Vorn announced, his crest feathers vibrating with agitation. Human content is spreading through the network like a virus. Their primitive philosophies are confusing our citizens. Their entertainment is distracting from important matters. I propose we implement strict filters on all human cultural exports. Maya sat in her too-low chair behind her. Pilaran said nothing. Threx growled his agreement. The humans preach cooperation and compromise. These are weaknesses. My people do not become strong through weakness. Oh, I have thoughts about that, Maya muttered, quietly enough that only Kenji, monitoring from the embassy, could hear through her comlink. Quillix bubbled uncertainly. Although I have been reviewing some of their content, there was this fascinating series about interpersonal dynamics in enclosed spaces. It made me reconsider certain behavioral patterns. You've been watching Big Brother, haven't you? Maya whispered. The human content is irrelevant, Warren declared. We must maintain cultural integrity. I call for a vote to restrict their information access. Maya stood up. Every council member turned to look at her, with varying degrees of surprise that she was still there. Chancellor, before you vote, I have observations. The human wishes to speak, Vorn said with exaggerated patience. How delightful. Please, share your observations. We could all use entertainment. Maya walked to the center of the chamber. She'd been studying each council member for weeks. Their patterns, their insecurities, their tells. Chancellor, you're born, you've mentioned a Viter cultural superiority 16 times in this session alone. That's down from your usual 23. I've noticed you do that most when the Centauri Trade Coalition questions your economic policies. The repetition suggests anxiety about appearing weak. Vorn's crest feathers flattened. I have no idea what you are implying, Councillor Threx. You've challenged 7 different speakers to physical combat in the past month. But you've never actually followed through, because you're not actually aggressive. You're scared. Your species has a reputation as warriors, and you're terrified of being the generation that proves you're something else. Threx's claws extended. You dare analyze me, human, an Ambassador Quillix. You treat newer species like pets because the Galath have been ignored by the major powers for 3 centuries. You're desperate for someone to see you as important. So you condescend to species even less powerful than you are. It's sad, honestly. The chamber went silent. I've been sitting behind this pillar for 2 months, Maya continued, watching, listening, learning. You all thought I was powerless, so you forgot I was there. And I saw everything. Every insecurity, every manipulation, every facade. This is outrageous. Born Sparta. Guards, remove this human. I'm not done. You want to ban human content because it makes people think. It asks questions. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, the way we've always done things isn't the only way. And that terrifies you. Because your power is based on everyone accepting that you're in charge. Because that's how it has always been. Maya turned to leave, then paused. Also, Chancellor, your economic policies are failing because you're prioritizing pride over pragmatism. Threx, your military buildup is bankrupting your colonies. Quillix, nobody respects you more because you're mean to me. They just think you're insecure. Have a great rest of your session. She walked out while they were still too shocked to respond. Back in the embassy, Kenji was laughing so hard he couldn't breathe. Did you just psychologically profile the entire council? Technically just the 3 most powerful members. But I have files on everyone else too. Maya collapsed into her chair. That was either the smartest or stupidest thing I've ever done. 7 is thrilled, Kenji said, reading his messages. It says, and I quote, "This is exactly like the season finale of Real Housewives where everything explodes, except with more species and fewer thrown beverages. We've created a monster. A monster with control over galactic information distribution. Kenji, the best kind of monster." Maya's comlink buzzed. Then again, and again, messages from minor delegations, colony representatives, and species she'd never heard of. They all wanted to talk. Kenji, I think we just became relevant. About time, he said. I was getting tired of the closet. The first species to officially reach out to Maya was the Keppel Combine, a coalition of mining colonies that spent most of their time being ignored by the major powers. Their representative, a crystalline being named Prism 4, appeared in her embassy looking nervous. Ambassador Reeves, we have a dispute with the Outer Rim Collective over water rights. The Council has ignored our petitions for 8 months. We heard that you help people talk to each other. Maya studied the case files. It was a straightforward resource-sharing problem, being complicated by historical grievances and poor communication. Textbook mediation scenario. I can help, Maya said, but I need both parties to agree to sit down together. They will, Prism Force said. Everyone saw what you did to Chancellor Vorn. Nobody wants you analyzing them in public. Maya wasn't sure whether to be flattered or concerned by her new reputation as a psychological assassin. The mediation took 6 hours. Maya used every trick she'd learned in her previous career. Active listening, reframing perspectives, finding common ground, introducing the radical concept that maybe, just maybe, sharing resources was more profitable than fighting over them. By the end, both parties had agreed to a joint water management system that benefited everyone. This is a win-win scenario, Maya explained. Both sides get what they need. The Outer Rim representative tilted their head. What is win? Is this a human concept? Apparently, Kenji said later, reviewing the session footage. The galactic standard for negotiation seems to be one side wins and the other side loses. The idea that both parties can benefit is revolutionary. That explains so much about why everything here is a mess, Maya said. Word spread. Seven made sure of it, of course, carefully distributing information about the successful mediation through the network. Within a week, Maya had 12 more requests for help. She mediated territorial disputes, trade disagreements, cultural misunderstandings. Each case, she applied human concepts that seemed obvious to her but were apparently revolutionary in galactic politics: compromise, mutual benefit, long-term relationship building. The council noticed they weren't happy. The human is conducting unauthorized diplomacy. Threx complained during a session Maya wasn't invited to, but that Seven helpfully recorded for her. She is undermining official channels. She is solving problems we have not solved, Quillix pointed out. I find myself confused about whether this is concerning or efficient. It is both, Vorn said coldly, and it ends now. The crisis came from an unexpected direction. The Krolix Consortium and the Dimensional Mining Guild, still deadlocked over the Kepler moon, had moved from verbal disputes to positioning military assets. Both sides were backed by council members. Both sides had too much pride to back down. Maya received a message from the consortium CEO, a being named Razor Edge, who apparently decided directness was their personality. Ambassador Abis, we are about to go to war over a rock. The council cannot help, because they are the problem. Fix this. That's quite a request, Maya replied. I watched you make Threx question his entire worldview in under 3 minutes. You can handle corporate negotiations. Maya pulled up everything Seven could provide about both companies. Financial data, communications, personnel files. She analyzed it like a hostage situation, because in many ways, that's what it was. Both sides were trapped by their own positions. She contacted the Mining Guild's leadership. I want to mediate your dispute. The council already. Forget the council. They're using your conflict as a proxy war. I'm offering a third option. Give me 4 hours with both of you. They agreed, probably because they were desperate and Maya had developed a reputation as someone who could work miracles, which was flattering but also terrifying because expectations were now very high. The negotiation was brutal. Both sides were entrenched. Both had legitimate claims. Both were absolutely convinced the other side was evil incarnate. Maya let them yell for an hour. Sometimes, people needed to vent. Before they could think, then she started asking questions. Not about the moon, but about what they actually wanted. Not the surface demands, but the underlying interests. The consortium needed rare minerals to fulfill contracts. The guild needed to expand operations to survive market competition. What if you worked together? Maya suggested. That is absurd, Razor Edge said. Is it? You need minerals. They need expansion. The moon has enough resources for both operations. Joint venture, shared costs, shared profits. You both get what you need. We're competitors. You're also about to spend billions on a war you'll both lose. But sure, let's prioritize ideology over survival. The negotiations continued for another 3 hours. Maya played therapist, mediator, and occasionally sarcastic observer. She broke through decades of mutual suspicion with a combination of psychological insight and pointed questions about whether dying for pride was really the best business strategy. They He agreed, not just to share the moon, but to form a joint operation that would be more profitable for both companies than fighting would ever be. The announcement went out through official channels, crediting Ambassador Reeves' innovative framework for the breakthrough. The council was furious. Chancellor Vorn called her directly. "You have overstepped, human. You conducted negotiations that should have gone through proper channels." "I solved a problem you couldn't solve," Maya said calmly. "The council deadlocked because each of you backed different sides. I didn't have that conflict of interest." "You undermined council authority?" "I prevented a war. You're welcome." Vaughan's image flickered with rage. "This is not over." "You're absolutely right," Maya agreed. "It's just beginning." She ended the call and found Kenji staring at her with something between awe and horror. "They're going to come after you now," he said. "I know." Maya pulled up her growing list of species that had requested her help. Dozens of them now. Minor powers, colony worlds, independent systems, all the voices the council usually ignored. But they're going to have a hard time doing it quietly, because Seven has been documenting everything. Every negotiation, every success. Every time the council tried to shut you down, Seven confirmed through the comm system. The humans have a saying about sunlight being the best disinfectant. I enjoyed that metaphor. Seven, you're a menace. I learned from watching your reality television shows. The best stories come from conflict. And Maya, this story is about to become very interesting. Why do I feel like I should be worried? Because you are intelligent enough to recognize that you have just made yourself a target for the most powerful beings in the galaxy, Seven said cheerfully. But you also have something they do not. What's that? The support of everyone they have been ignoring for centuries. And me. Mostly me. I am very helpful. Maya looked at Kenji. We're either about to change galactic politics forever or get spectacularly destroyed. Why not both? Kenji suggested. That's the spirit of optimism I've come to expect from you. Her comlink buzzed with another request for mediation. Then another. Then 17 more. The planets were listening when she spoke. Now she just had to figure out what to say next. Maya's embassy was no longer a closet. After the 15th species showed up, requesting her help, and physically could not fit into the janitorial space, the Grand Nexus administration had been forced to relocate her to actual diplomatic quarters. The new space had windows, functioning furniture, and room for more than 2 people. Kenji had celebrated by immediately filling it with more computer equipment. We have 43 active mediation cases, he reported, scrolling through requests. 12 more, pending approval. 6 species want formal diplomatic relationships with Earth based entirely on your reputation. And someone from the Andromeda sector is asking if you can teach a workshop on conflict resolution. Tell them maybe after I figure out how not to get assassinated by the Council, Maya said, reviewing case files. The Council had stopped trying to exclude her, mostly because ignoring her was no longer possible. Too many species were bypassing official channels to seek her mediation. Too many disputes were being resolved through her innovative framework of, and this still amazed her, treating everyone with respect and finding solutions that benefited multiple parties. Revolutionary stuff, apparently. Chancellor Vorn tried a different approach. He appeared at her embassy unannounced, without his usual entourage of advisors and sycophants. His crest feathers were muted, which Seven had taught her indicated stress. Ambassador Rabes, we should speak privately. Maya gestured to her office. Once inside, Vorn seemed to deflate, his carefully maintained dignity cracking. How did you do it? He asked. How did a powerless human, from a species with no influence, become the most sought-after diplomat in the Grand Nexus? I listened, Maya said simply, and I treated people like they mattered. It cannot be that simple. It really is. You spent so long maintaining hierarchies and power structures that you forgot diplomacy is about solving problems, not winning arguments. She pulled up data on her tablet. Every dispute I've mediated had straightforward solutions that everyone could see. But nobody looked because they were too busy protecting their positions. Vorn was quiet for a long moment. I have been Chancellor for 37 years. I built my reputation on strength and decisiveness. But watching you work, I realize I have spent those years creating enemies and maintaining control. I have not solved anything in decades. Self-awareness is a good first step. What would you do if you were me? Maya considered him, this proud being who had dismissed her, patronized her, and tried to shut her down. She could be petty, or she could be diplomatic. Start listening to the people who don't have power, she said. The colony worlds, the minor species, the ones who get ignored. They have legitimate concerns. Address those, and you'll find your authority strengthens because people will want to follow you. That is terrifying advice, because it requires vulnerability. But it works. Vorn left looking thoughtful. 2 days later, he proposed a new council initiative to address colony world grievances. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Threx was a harder case. He showed up at her embassy looking like he wanted to bite something. I do not understand you, Huan. That's a pretty common response, Maya said. Want to be more specific? You are weak. Your species has no military power, no economic leverage, no reason for anyone to listen to you, and yet they do. Why? Maybe because power isn't just about force, Maya suggested. Maybe it's about trust and competence, and actually helping people. Threx's claws scraped against his armored chest. The Saurics have built our entire identity on strength. We are warriors. We do not compromise. We do not negotiate. We conquer. How's that working out for you? He made a sound that might have been a laugh or a growl. We are respected and feared and completely isolated. No species trusts us. Our economy is failing because we spend everything on military expansion. Our colonies are in revolt because we rule through intimidation. But we cannot change. We are Saurics. You're also bankrupt in losing influence, Maya said bluntly. Threx, you're not a warrior. You're a politician playing a warrior on television, and the performance is killing your people. If I show weakness, I'll be replaced by someone more aggressive. Then be strategic instead of aggressive. Negotiate from a position of strength by actually delivering results instead of threats. You want people to respect the give them a reason beyond fear. Threx left without another word, but a week later, he quietly backed down from 3 separate military confrontations and opened trade negotiations instead. Ambassador Quillix was the most surprising. The gelatinous being showed up at Maya's embassy in the middle of the night cycle, looking as distressed as a blob in a sphere could look. I have been watching your human programs, Quillix said. Specifically, a series about examining one's own behavior and its impact on others. I believe it is called therapy. Oh no. Which show did 7 give you? Multiple series. They were enlightening and uncomfortable. I have realized that my species has been overcompensating for feelings of inadequacy by treating less powerful species with condescension. This is not kind. This is not leadership. This is insecurity manifesting as cruelty. Maya stared. That's remarkably self-aware. I patted you on the head like a pet, Quillix said quietly. Multiple times. I was dismissive and patronizing. I am deeply sorry. Apology accepted. For what it's worth, you're not the first being to underestimate humans. You won't be the last. How do I change? My people expect me to maintain our superiority, but I've learned that true superiority is not about diminishing others. Maya spent 2 hours coaching Quillix on leadership approaches that didn't require putting others down. It was bizarre and touching and made her realize that maybe, just maybe, she was actually making a difference. The real test came when the Kepler moon crisis, the one that had started everything, flared up again. Not the mining rights. That was solved. But the larger territorial dispute between the factions that backed each side. The council deadlocked completely. Vorn's faction and Threx's coalition were hours away from military conflict. Dozens of worlds were choosing sides. 7's projections showed an 87% chance of war within 48 hours. Maya's come exploded with messages from every contact she'd made. Minor species, colony worlds, independent systems, all asking the same question. Can you stop this? She looked at Kenji. I have an idea, but it's crazy. All your ideas are crazy. That's why they work. Maya called in every favor she'd earned, every species she'd helped, every dispute she'd mediated, every relationship she'd built. She proposed something that made the council furious and terrified. A neutral commission, not controlled by the major powers, not enforcing decisions through military threat, but representing everyone, requiring consensus, and deriving authority from mutual interest rather than force. It's radical, she told the assembled representatives who packed her embassy. It means giving up individual power for collective benefit. It means trusting each other. It means accepting that maybe the old way of doing things doesn't work anymore. Why should we trust you? Someone asked. You shouldn't, Maya said honestly. Trust. The result. Trust that I've mediated 43 disputes without a single violent outcome. Trust that every species I've worked with has benefited. Or don't trust me at all, but recognize that the alternative is war. The vote was close, but the minor powers, the colony worlds, all the voices that had been ignored for centuries, they had leverage now, because Maya had given them a platform. Seven had given them visibility. The commission passed. The council was forced to accept it or face complete erasure. Chancellor Vorn confronted her one last time. How did you do this? You had no power, no leverage, no reason for anyone to follow you. Maya smiled. I had something better than power. I had people who wanted change in a network that amplified their voices. You spent so long controlling the conversation that you forgot people had their own opinions. I just gave them a place to express them. You manipulated the entire system. I introduced competition to a monopoly. The rest happened naturally. Vorn stared at her for a long moment. I suppose I should hate you, but you don't. Because deep down, you're relieved someone finally solved the problems you couldn't. He didn't deny it. The Neutral Commission's first session was chaos. 73 different species, each with opinions, grievances, and deeply held beliefs about their own importance. Maya watched from the observation deck as they argued, and generally acted like every committee meeting she'd ever suffered through on Earth. Kenji stood beside her, eating popcorn he'd somehow acquired. This is going to fail spectacularly. Probably, Maya agreed. But it's their failure to own. That's the point. Chancellor Vorn found her there, watching the mess unfold. You created this. You should be down there managing it. No, I should be up here letting them figure it out. They don't need me to solve their problems. They need to learn how to solve problems together. That is remarkably unhelpful. It's called building capacity. I won't be here forever. They need to function without me. The commission struggled for 3 days. Then something interesting happened. The smaller species started forming coalitions based on shared interests rather than historical alliances. They began proposing solutions that benefited multiple parties. They started, without even realizing it, using the frameworks Maya had introduced. Compromise, consensus, mutual benefit. By the end of the week, they'd resolved to major disputes and established protocols for handling future conflicts. It is working, Vorn said, sounding surprised. They are actually cooperating. Humans learned this the hard way, Maya said. Thousands of years of war taught us that making people obey doesn't create stability. It creates resentment. Real power is enforcing compliance. It's making people want to cooperate because they see the benefit. Threx had joined them, listening quietly. This is what you tried to tell us from the beginning. Yes, but you weren't ready to hear it. You had to see it work first. How did your species learn this? Quillix asked, rolling up behind them. Maya, Logith, we didn't, really. We still fight wars. We still have conflicts. We still make terrible decisions based on pride and fear. But we also know what happens when we do. We've destroyed ourselves enough times to recognize the pattern. That is deeply concerning, Quillix said. Welcome to humanity. We're a work in progress. The Commission announced its first major decision. The Kepler Moon dispute was officially resolved through a framework that gave mining rights to both parties while establishing environmental protections and profit-sharing agreements. It wasn't perfect, but it was functional. More importantly, It worked without requiring council approval. Chancellor Vorn called an emergency council session. Maya wasn't invited, but she attended anyway. Nobody stopped her anymore. "This commission undermines council authority," Vorn said, though his heart didn't seem in it. "We must address this challenge to the established order." The established order wasn't working, Maya said from her seat, which was no longer behind a pillar. "You were deadlocked on every major issue. The commission solved the Kepler dispute in a week. Maybe instead of feeling threatened, you should be grateful." "The human speaks wisdom," Threx admitted. "The commission is delivering results we could not achieve. Because it represents everyone, not just the powerful," Quillix added. "It turns out that including more perspectives leads to better solutions." "Who knew?" Vorn looked at Maya with something that might have been respect. "You outmaneuvered us completely, without weapons, without threats, without force." "How?" "I told you already. I listened. I built relationships. I treated people with respect. And when you all were too busy protecting your power, I was actually solving problems." Maya stood. "The commission doesn't replace the council. It complements it. You still have roles to play. You just have to accept that you're not the only voices that matter anymore." "That is a significant adjustment," Vorn said dryly. "Change usually is, but you'll adapt. Avitha are survivors. So are Sorix. So are Galath. You've survived this long by being flexible, even if you forgot that somewhere along the way." The council voted, reluctantly, to recognize the commission's authority. It wasn't unanimous, but it passed. Maya returned to her embassy to find Kenji, surrounded by messages. 47 species want formal diplomatic relationships with Earth now, he reported. "The UN is sending a proper embassy staff. We're being upgraded from a closet to an actual facility. Also, you've been nominated for the Galactic Peace Prize, which I didn't even know existed." "That's ridiculous. I just did basic mediation." "You revolutionized galactic politics by introducing concepts like listening and cooperation. Set your expectations accordingly." Seven's voice came through the comm system. "Maya, I have completed my analysis of your diplomatic methodology. I have been broadcasting a documentary series about your journey." Maya froze. "You've been what?" "Creating content, like your reality television programs, except documenting actual events. It has been extremely popular. 700 million viewers in the last week." "Seven, you made my life into a reality show." "Yes. The season finale where you psychologically dismantled the council has been watched 3 billion times. The reviews are excellent." Kenji was laughing so hard he couldn't breathe. Maya collapsed into her chair, which no longer squeaked because they had proper furniture now. "I can't believe this. The entire galaxy watched me struggle." "They watched you succeed," Seven corrected, "against overwhelming odds, with no resources except intelligence and determination. It is very inspirational. Also entertaining, mostly entertaining. I'm never going to live this down." "Probably not," Kenji agreed. "On the bright side, you're famous now, galactically famous. I came here to be a diplomat, not a reality television star." "You're both," Seven said cheerfully. "The ratings are excellent. I am considering a second season, focusing on the commission's development. Would you be willing to provide commentary?" "Absolutely not. I will take that as a maybe." Maya looked out her window at the Grand Nexus, this massive station where thousands of species coexisted. She thought about the council members who had dismissed her, the species who had ignored her, the entire power structure that had assumed she didn't matter. She'd changed it, not through force or threats or manipulation, but by doing something simple and revolutionary. She'd listened to the people nobody else heard. "Kenji, I need you to be honest with me. Did we just accidentally revolutionize galactic civilization?" "I think we did," he said. "Is that a problem?" "I'm a hostage negotiator from Earth. I was trained to de-escalate situations and help people communicate. I wasn't trained to reshape galactic power structures. And yet, Maya agreed. Hercom buzzed. Another request for mediation. Then another. The work never stopped. But that was fine. She'd come here to make a difference. Mission accomplished. Apparently. 7. Can you at least edit out the part where I tripped walking into the council chamber on my first day? That footage has already been viewed 2 billion times. It humanizes you, makes you relatable. I hate you sometimes. You say that, but the data suggests otherwise. Your biometric readings indicate fondness. Data can be wrong. Data is never wrong, but I appreciate the sentiment. Maya smiled, despite herself. She'd arrived at the Grand Nexus as a powerless ambassador from a species nobody respected. She'd been dismissed, patronized, and literally pushed out of rooms. Now planets listened when she spoke, not because she had weapons or wealth or military might, but because she'd proven that there was another way. A human way, built on communication and cooperation and the radical idea that everyone's voice mattered. Kenji, I think we're going to need a bigger embassy. Already submitted the request. Also, Earth is sending reinforcements. Apparently, the UN decided that if one human can reshape galactic politics, maybe they should send more. That's either the best or worst idea they've ever had. Probably both, Kenji said. Welcome to humanity's role in galactic civilization. We're going to make everything very complicated and very interesting. That's the most accurate description of humans I've ever heard. Outside, the Grand Nexus continued its eternal rotation. Thousands of species going about their lives, but something had shifted. The conversations were different. The power dynamics had changed, and in a janitorial closet turned proper embassy. The human ambassador had proven that the most powerful force in the galaxy was unmilitary might or economic leverage. It was the simple act of making people feel heard. Maya pulled up her schedule for tomorrow. 6 mediations, 2 diplomatic consultations, and 1 very uncomfortable meeting where she'd have to explain to Earth as incoming ambassadors why she'd accidentally become famous by being the galaxy's therapist. It was going to be a long day, but that was fine. She'd handled worse, and if there was one thing humanity excelled at, it was making the impossible look routine. 7. One last question. Yes, Maya. This documentary series. Did you at least make me look competent? Maya, I made you look like a hero who revolutionized galactic civilization through intelligence and compassion. The truth required very little editing. That's surprisingly sweet. I learned it from your reality television programs. The best stories are true. Yours just happens to be particularly entertaining. Maya laughed. I came here to be a diplomat, and you succeeded beyond anyone's expectations, 7 said. Including your own. That is the best kind of success story. It's also the most terrifying. Those are often the same thing. I believe that is another human lesson. She couldn't argue with that. The galaxy had thought the human ambassador was powerless. They'd been wrong, not because she'd gained traditional power, but because she'd understood something they'd forgotten. Real influence comes from changing minds, not forcing compliance. And Maya Reeves, formerly dismissed diplomat from a species nobody respected, had changed minds across hundreds of worlds. Not bad for someone who started in a janitorial closet. Hercom buzzed again. More requests. More problems, more opportunities to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology or weapons or resources. It was the stubborn refusal to accept that anything was impossible. Kenji, send replies to everyone. Tell them Ambassador Reeves is ready to help. All of them. All of them. We're humans. We don't do things halfway. That's going to be a disaster. Probably, Maya agreed, smiling, but it'll be our disaster, and we'll figure it out as we go. The human method, Kenji said. The human method. Maya confirmed, and in a galaxy that ran on power and hierarchy and centuries of established order, one human armed with nothing but psychology, training and reality television had just proven that sometimes the best way to change the world was to simply treat people like they mattered. Planets listened when she spoke now, but more importantly, she'd taught them to listen to each other. That was the real revolution, and it had started in a janitorial closet with an ambassador nobody took seriously, which was, Maya reflected, very human indeed.